Hello! Welcome to week 1 of our Rise quilting class. I'm Kelsey and I'm so excited to be sewing with you. I wish we could be together in person, but I'm grateful to connect with you here. Over the next 5 weeks, we're going to learn some quilting basics and make a scrappy table runner for your table. The great thing about quilting is that once you know the basics, you can make all kinds of things. The same skills you learn in this class, you can use to make placemats, coasters, wall hangings, a blanket for your baby or your bed. You can really get creative. Another reason I like quilting is because they're like stories. It's about telling stories. I can hold a quilt and remember where I got the fabric, where it was made, who I made it for, what I've used it for. The quilt behind me I made for my wedding, and I see it hanging in my home every day, and I remember the joy of my wedding day. One quilter who I really respect is a woman named Harriet Powers. She was born into slavery here in the United States in the 1800s. And because of the color of her skin, her gender, and her social status, the way she shared her voice, the way she passed down stories was through her quilts. She made beautiful quilts depicting the stories of her people, their legends, important events, stories from the Bible. And other women and men across cultures and across time have made beautiful quilts that tell stories, using up bits of fabric from the clothes of loved ones or from worn out linens, giving them a longer life, and using what was old to make something new, to make a beautiful story out of fabric. As you work, don't worry if it's not perfect. It's yours. There's no perfect way to tell a story. It will be beautiful even with all of its imperfections. By the end of this class, you all will be quilters. You'll be storytellers, showing a piece of yourself in your work, sharing your creativity with others. And I can't wait to see what you make. So let's get started. Yay! So quilts are made of 3 layers, and they're all stacked on top of each other. The top layer is the quilt top. This is the fun and the pretty part, and this is what you'll be making. Under the quilt top is what's called the batting. This gives the quilt its thickness and its warmth so that it's cuddly in the wintertime. And then underneath the batting is the backing fabric. Once these are all placed on top of one another, we'll go through and stitch them all together. That makes it sturdy so you can wash it and really use it. Then we'll bind it up together with little strips of fabric, and that's a quilt. All right, and the bag of fabric that you picked up at CarePoint, you should have a piece of batting, a larger piece of fabric, which is going to be your backing fabric, some white fabric or lighter colored fabric, and some bright, colorful fabric. This week, we are just going to use the white fabric and the colorful fabric. So let's set aside the large piece of backing and the batting. We won't need those for a couple of weeks. The tools we need for this week are our cutting mat, the ruler, and the rotary cutter. Now this rotary cutter has a lock on it so that if somebody picks it up, they won't hurt themselves. So what you're gonna do to unlock it is push down on this white circle. and then you can squeeze it and expose the blade. But be careful, it's pretty sharp. So for cutting this week, we are going to cut 5-inch squares. 18 of those squares are going to be cut from our bright fabric, and 18 of those squares will be cut from the white or the lighter fabric, for a total of 36 5-inch squares. So let's get cutting. Some of the fabric that you have in your bag might be a little wrinkly, and that's okay, but it would be a good idea to press it with an iron so that it's nice and flat, so you get an even cut with your rotary cutter. So I've got my fabric. I'm going to place it on the mat and line it up with this number 10. Then you're going to count back 5 spots to the 5, because we're making 5-inch squares. You'll take your rotary cutter and make a nice slice down the fabric. Then I'm going to move my ruler down . Line it up with that first tick mark, and you can count over 5 inches to make sure you're cutting 5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll make another slice with your rotary cutter. And you got to put some pressure on your ruler with your hand, because it likes to wiggle about. So now, I'm gonna line this one up, count over 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make another cut. And this one's done. I'm just gonna even this out a little bit because it's over the 10 mark, just a smidge. And now I have 2 5-inch squares. So I'm gonna do this 16 more times using all the different bright fabrics that I had in my bag. Line it up like so. And then move on to another fabric. So this one, you can see it's a little wonky-do. And that's not a real word, but it's a curve. It's not a straight line, so it won't be good for cutting. So I'm gonna cut that away so that I get a nice straight line to start cutting from. Go down here, make my line, scoot it on down. Okay, so with my rotary cutter, I didn't press down hard enough, so it's still stuck. You can use your scissors, which is usually what I do, and just these aren't good scissors. And then cut that loose. And then you're just cutting. Inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you just keep cutting away until you've got 18 5-inch squares from your colorful fabric. And then you just do the same thing with the white and the lighter fabric. And if you don't have enough fabric from either the white or the color to make 18, that's okay. Just cut 36. So I might have just enough white fabric to cut 16 5-inch squares. That's fine. I'll cut 20 squares from my bright fabric and it will be just fine. Remember, there's no perfect way to tell a story. We'll get through it and it'll be beautiful. Now I have 2 stacks of 5-inch squares, 18 of the white and 18 of the colors. And that sets us up for week 2. And we'll go to the sewing machine in week 2 and start piecing together our quilt top.